parents moved into their new house without telling me. I found out from Facebook, the family that built this together. My sister commented, "So proud of us all." I stayed silent. 2 weeks later, Dad came by asking for money for landscaping. I said, "Do it with your family." His face twisted. Mom started crying. I found out my parents had bought their new house through a Facebook post, and it really hurt. It was a wide shot of the porch, fresh gray siding, a rocking chair, 2 ferns hanging neatly from hooks, and above the door, a wooden plaque that read "Home Sweet Home." My dad had his arm around my mom, both of them smiling like they'd just won the lottery. Kayla was on the porch railing holding their golden retriever in her lap. The caption said, "The family that built this together. So grateful for everything." The top comment was from Kayla. "So proud of us all." I read it 3 times. The words didn't make sense at first. I sat there in silence wondering if I'd missed a group chat or an email. I hadn't. That was the first I heard of it. After a year and a half of sending my parents $1,200 every month, a full quarter of my income, they bought a house without saying a word. Not a mention of closing day. Not a single photo sent privately. I wasn't invited to the final walkthrough, the move-in weekend, or even the stupid decorative sign shopping spree they apparently went on. I stared at the screen until it dimmed and went black. It wasn't about the money, not at first. I wasn't keeping track like a loan shark. I never once asked how much they had saved or how long they needed help. When they first came to me and said the roof leaked and there was black mold in the basement and they just needed some help to move out, I didn't hesitate. I knew their house was falling apart. I knew they couldn't afford a new place without help. I had a decent job even if it barely covered my own rent and student loans. I figured it was temporary. Month after month I tightened my budget, skipped dinners out, said no to vacations. I watched my savings stall out while they kept saying they were getting close. Sometimes Mom would cry on the phone. Sometimes Dad would just say, "We'll pay you back once we're in a better place." I didn't press. I trusted them. Turns out I was funding a house I wasn't even part of. The post got hundreds of likes. Comments from extended family, old neighbors, coworkers, all of them cheering them on. "So beautiful. You deserve it. This is what family is all about." And the reason they could afford that down payment in the first place, wasn't even mentioned. I didn't comment. I didn't message anyone. I didn't visit. I skipped the housewarming even though Kayla posted all about it later. Charcuterie boards, champagne, photos in front of the fireplace. A week passed. Then another. And then like clockwork, Dad showed up at my apartment. Middle of a Sunday, just rang the buzzer and waited. I was stunned for a second. I hadn't seen him in person in months. He stood there like nothing was wrong, holding a coffee in one hand and a reusable grocery bag in the other, like this was just a casual check-in. I didn't let him in. He stood in the hall while I waited behind the door. He said they were thinking of doing some landscaping in the backyard. Nothing crazy, just fixing the fence, maybe putting in a patio. A fire pit. He said they wanted to make it a space the whole family could enjoy. Then he asked if I could help. I stared at him for a few seconds before answering. Not out of confusion. I was making sure I said it the exact way I wanted. I told him, "Do it with your family." His expression cracked. A second later, Mom stepped out of the elevator. She hadn't even come up with him, she was waiting downstairs. Her face crumpled the second she saw me. She said my name like it meant something. Like she hadn't erased me from their little home-buying celebration. She cried. Dad stood there, red in the face like I just slapped him, and I shut the door. They thought I'd move on. That the hurt would fade. They had no idea what they just started. After that day I went quiet. No calls. No texts. Nothing for Thanksgiving. I figured if I wasn't family enough to be part of the house, then I wasn't family enough to pass the mashed potatoes. They acted like it was a misunderstanding. Like I was just being dramatic. Kayla even messaged me once with, "Can we not make everything about money?" And I didn't even respond. Because it was never just about the money. It was about being used. Being left out. Being treated like an ATM with a muted voice. What they didn't know was that I had receipts. Literally. Every bank statement. Every Zelle transfer. Every emailed "thank you" from those early months that they probably thought I forgot. I started gathering it all just in case. Not for legal reasons. For clarity. For myself. Because the more I read through them, the more I realized how consistent I'd been. How generous. And how calculated they had been in keeping me out of the loop once things got real. One night in December I tried to have a real conversation. Not even to fight, just to understand. I called Mom and asked her directly why I wasn't told about the house. She said things moved fast. I asked if they remembered I was still sending money after they had already closed. She said it was a surprise. I asked if I was ever meant to be part of it or if I was just the invisible investor. She said I was overthinking it. I hung up. That was the last time I tried being reasonable. From that point on, I stopped replying to anything. When Dad texted asking if I could come by and see the place, I left it on read. When Kayla tried tagging me in throwback posts about family memories, I untagged myself. 3 weeks passed. Then a new text from Dad. Need your help. Something happened with the retaining wall. Can we talk? I ignored it. Then Mom emailed. We're worried about you. We miss you. Please don't punish the whole family over a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. That word again. I gave them 15 months of my income, skipped out on a better car, stayed in my tiny overpriced apartment, and cooked all my meals like a broke college kid, while they built a life without me. And now they were acting like I'd ghosted them because I was moody. So I decided to speak a language they'd understand. I called up someone I knew from high school, Andre. We weren't exactly close, but he worked as a cop now and he owed me a favor from way back. I told him I needed to make something look official just for show, nothing illegal. He was intrigued. A week later we pulled up to the new house in a black Explorer. I was wearing a plain navy jacket holding a clipboard. Andre had his badge hanging from his neck, looking tired and bored like every real cop looks when knocking on doors. I rang the bell. Kayla answered, saw Andre behind me and immediately froze. She stepped back like she thought someone had died. I walked in like I belonged there. Mom came down the stairs in slippers, eyes wide. Dad was in the kitchen. Everyone looked at Andre. No one looked at me. I said, just here for a quick asset recovery. Shouldn't take more than 10 minutes. I walked straight to the master bedroom, opened the drawer in Dad's nightstand, and pulled out the fireproof envelope I'd seen him use for years. Every time he had cash he didn't want to put in the bank. I counted out exactly $7,800. Not a dollar more. Andre stood in the hallway the whole time, arms crossed. Not saying a word. When I walked back out, Dad finally spoke. He asked what the hell I was doing. I told him I was taking back a fraction of what I gave. He started raising his voice. Mom kept saying my name like it would change something. Kayla stood there looking like she wanted to scream but couldn't figure out how. I left without another word. The next day the emails started. Then the texts. Then the voicemails. They begged. They reasoned. They asked for understanding. But understanding had a price. And they were already overdrawn. They stayed quiet at first. I think they were in shock, not just from the money but from the fact that I had the nerve to show up and take it right in front of them with someone in uniform standing beside me. They didn't know what to do with that version of me. The one who didn't apologize. The one who didn't flinch. But silence doesn't last long in my family. By the end of that same week, the first signs of their damage control started popping up. Subtle at first. A vague post from my mom that said some people will only support you if they get credit. Sad world. A few relatives suddenly liking photos from months ago, as if warming up for something. Then the messages started. Aunt Teresa. Hey honey, I'm not trying to get in the middle of anything, but your mom is really upset. Can you just give her a call? She says you're going through something. Uncle Mark. You only get one set of parents. Maybe give them some grace? They're heartbroken. They had no idea what they were talking about. No one had the facts. No one asked me. Because my parents weren't telling the truth. They were telling the version that made me the villain. The ungrateful daughter. The one who stormed into their house and stole money after cutting them off emotionally, all because she didn't get enough attention. That's how I knew they weren't sorry. They weren't reflecting. They were just reacting, scrambling to paint over the damage before it spread. Except the damage wasn't paintable. I had the receipts. I had the timeline. I had 15 months of bank statements, every transaction labeled clearly, every message saved. I had the proof. And they had a story that was falling apart the more they told it. I kept my mouth shut. Publicly I said nothing. Privately I was done being silent. I took the extra step. I contacted a lawyer I knew through a friend, not to sue but to explore what I could do if they tried anything bold. Turns out legally that cash I took, I had every right to it. No court would bat an eye after seeing what I contributed. It wouldn't even be worth their time to fight it. Still they didn't stop. Mom emailed me for paragraphs about how we can't go back in time, but we can move forward if we choose love. She ended it with, we've paused the landscaping plans. We're hoping we can all come together and finish this as a family. The same family they were so proud of in that Facebook post. The one that didn't include me. And then Dad texted, let's start fresh. Come by for dinner. Just us. No tension. No drama. Just family. It wasn't reconciliation. It was strategy. But I said yes. Not because I wanted closure. Not because I missed them. Because I wanted to watch them sit across from me and squirm. I wanted to see how far they'd go to pretend nothing had happened while knowing everything had. Before the dinner, I bought something I'd been thinking about for weeks. A necklace. Not just any necklace. A sapphire pendant in a thick gold setting. It was gorgeous. Regal. And it cost me $7,800. I wore it to their house. I didn't say a word about it, but I saw their eyes catch it the second I stepped through the door. Mom complimented it. Kayla blinked 3 times too fast. Dad poured himself a double whiskey before dinner even hit the table. We sat, we ate, they acted. Smiles, light questions, fake warmth. Kayla even brought out a photo album like this was some Hallmark holiday. They asked about my work, my apartment, whether I was dating. They didn't ask about the money. They didn't ask why I really came. They were too scared of the answer. When dessert was done, I stood up. Thanked them for dinner. Told them it was good to talk again. And then I walked out, not a hug exchanged. The next morning, Kayla posted a filtered picture of the dinner table with the caption, "Some wounds heal slowly, but family is worth it." With a heart emoji. I didn't like it. I didn't comment. A week later, I heard from a friend of a friend that my parents were telling people I'd taken advantage of their kindness. That I turned cold after they gave me everything. That they were grieving the daughter they thought they knew. But the best part? They couldn't afford the landscaping anymore. The backyard stayed patchy and dead. No fire pit. No cozy family hangouts. Just a rough patch of dirt behind a house they couldn't fully finish. They blamed me. Started calling me the bad daughter. Said Kayla was their real rock. It didn't bother me the way they wanted it to. I let them talk. Because I knew how this story would end. And I already had my necklace. By spring, the backyard still looked like hell. Dry, patchy grass, half-pulled weeds, and a stack of bricks sitting untouched under a plastic tarp. The fire pit never got built. The patio furniture they posted about in February? Still in the box, rotting on the side of the house. Every time Kayla shared a photo of the house, she cropped the bottom half, never showing the yard. Her latest caption said, "Progress takes time. Patience, peace, and plants herb." I nearly choked. They were still pretending. Still trying to save face after being cut off. Still acting like things were slowly coming together, even though I knew they'd stalled out the second I took that envelope. Then something completely unexpected happened. I was at CVS picking up toothpaste when I got a message request from a woman named Leanne. I didn't recognize the name at first, she wasn't on my friends list. But I opened the message anyway. It said, "Hi Darlene, I know this is random, but I think we might be related. I did a DNA test a few months ago and something came up. Would you be willing to talk?" At first I thought it was spam. I almost deleted it. But something in me paused. I wrote back one line. "Related how?" She responded immediately. It came back with a close paternal match to someone named Robert Gentry. "That's your dad, right?" I didn't answer right away. I just stared at her message for a long time. Then she sent the screenshot. It was real. Full match, half-sibling level. I sat down in the CVS parking lot and didn't move for almost 20 minutes. Leanne was a year younger than me. Different mother. She lived in another state. Apparently she'd grown up hearing that her dad wasn't in the picture, but her mom never gave her a name. She finally got curious and did a DNA test over Christmas. The results came back in late February, and there was my dad's name, clear as day, matched through a chain of cousins and direct lineage. And just like that, the fog over the last year burned off. Of course I'd been pushed aside. Of course I wasn't invited to the closing or the photo sessions or the housewarming. My parents had been trying to rewrite their lives, and I wasn't part of the new story. I was the inconvenient chapter. I printed the screenshot, highlighted the match, and mailed it directly to their house. No note. No explanation. 2 days later I got the first call. Then a text. Then another call. "Mom, we were going to tell you. It had nothing to do with the house." "Dad, this doesn't change anything. You're still our daughter." So, that word said everything. But what I didn't expect was Kayla. She showed up at my apartment 3 days later. No warning, just buzzed up. She looked different. Not angry. More like someone who just walked through smoke and realized they'd been breathing it for years. She sat on my couch and asked if it was true. I said yes. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she asked if I was lying about the money, if I'd really sent that much. So I showed her. The bank statements. The Zelle transfers. The old text messages from our mom that said things like, "We just need a little more help until spring and you're our blessing. Don't ever forget it." Kayla didn't cry. She just stared at the screen like she didn't know who our parents were anymore. And maybe she didn't. I told her about Leanne. I told her I'd spoken to her. That she seemed nice. Normal. Confused but decent. We didn't hug. We didn't have some big moment of reconciliation. But she said thank you. Then she left. 2 days later she sent me a photo from her phone. The backyard. A metal sign had been planted in the middle of the dead lawn. It said, "Private property. No trespassing." No caption. No emoji. No explanation. I knew exactly who put it there. And I knew who it was for. I started laughing so hard I had to put my phone down. They weren't just pushing me out now. They were closing the gates. Boarded up hearts in a hollow house. The family that really built this together. No. They could finish it without me. Without the money. Without the truth. They thought they'd won. But I wasn't the one standing in dirt. After they staked that private property sign in the backyard, I figured I'd heard the last of them. Felt like a message. Bold, petty, and perfectly in character. No more pretending, no more fake dinners or sugar-coated texts. I was officially exiled from the family I'd paid to build. And I didn't care. At least not until the silence broke again. Not with drama but with something worse. Begging. It started slowly as it always does with them. A "hey" from Kayla on a random Tuesday morning. No follow-up. Just one word dropped like a fishing line. I didn't respond. 2 days later she tried again. "Did you ever hear anything else from that Leanne girl?" That caught my attention. I told her I had. That we'd exchanged a few emails, nothing deep. She was polite. Reserved. Still wrapping her head around the whole thing. Kayla didn't say much after that. Just read the message and disappeared. But I knew what was happening. The shock had worn off and now the cracks were showing. My parents had built their house on silence and secrets, and both were starting to collapse. A week after Kayla's message I got a voicemail from my dad. The first in months. He sounded tired. His voice dragged like he'd recorded it after pacing around the house 10 times. "Hey Darlene. I know we haven't talked. We miss you. Your mom does too. She's been crying a lot. I don't know what to say anymore. I was hoping maybe we could get dinner. All of us. Just something simple. No lectures, no guilt. Just something." He paused. "We're still trying to fix up the yard. We're stuck on a few things. Thought maybe you could help us plan." There was the yard. Like if they could just finish that last patch of land, everything would magically reset. Like the dirt could forgive what they wouldn't. I didn't respond. I didn't block them either. Instead that weekend I took a short drive and parked a block away from their house. I didn't go up to the door. I just sat watching from a distance. The place looked exactly the same. Beautiful exterior. Clean porch. Perfect symmetry. But out back the truth was harder to hide. The grass was still dead. There were empty bags of topsoil leaning against the fence. A metal cart full of unused tools, like they'd started and given up halfway through. The folding table I'd seen in Kayla's photo was out again. This time with measuring tape, a notebook, and a pile of crumpled catalog pages weighed down by a brick. They were still trying to do it themselves. Or pretending to. And I knew the game. If I gave in, even an inch, they'd use it to erase everything. Suddenly I'd never been cut out of the house plans. Never left off the Facebook post. Never drained of thousands of dollars. They'd treat my forgiveness like a reset button. But I had no interest in going back. I just wanted the ending. So I sent a message to the old family group chat. The one they hadn't used since before they moved. "Let's talk. One last time. Not to fix it. Just so we're not pretending anymore." Mom replied within 3 minutes. "Yes. Please." Kayla added a thumbs up. Dad never answered but I didn't expect him to. He'd show up. He always did when the audience was right. We scheduled to meet at the house the following Sunday. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't even angry anymore. I just wanted them to hear me. Not because I needed them to understand but because they needed to feel what I'd kept bottled up since that photo hit Facebook. I didn't plan a speech. I wasn't going to shout. I just wanted to say it all out loud. But the night before the meeting I got another message. This one from Leanne. She kept quiet since the last time we spoke. We hadn't messaged in weeks. But this time she wasn't quiet. He said, "I know this is going to sound crazy, but I think your dad just sent me a friend request." I froze. Then she followed it with a screenshot. It was him. Robert Gentry. No message, no introduction, just a request. Like she was someone he met at a barbecue and not the daughter he hid for 20-something years. I asked her if she was going to accept. She said she hadn't decided yet. But I had. I stared at the notification and realized something. He wasn't reaching out because he was ready to face what he did. He was reaching out because he thought it might solve something. Like if he brought her into the fold quietly she could replace me. Reset the balance. Complete the fantasy. And just like that I knew exactly how the Sunday meeting was going to end. Because I wasn't walking into that house to find peace. I was walking in to bury the version of me they thought they still had. It felt strange walking up to their door again knowing this wasn't a visit. It was a final act. The sky was overcast, the air heavy like it knew something was ending. Kayla answered before I could even knock. She gave a half smile, stepped aside and said nothing. Inside everything was too quiet. The house looked staged like they'd prepared for an open house, not a conversation. The table was already set. 4 plates, napkins folded into little triangles, candles lit. It was the kind of effort you only put in when you're trying to pretend everything's normal. Mom came around the corner all made up like it was Easter Sunday. Dad stood behind her, arms crossed, no greeting. They wanted this to feel like a family dinner. But the air was different now. We all knew it. The food was forgettable. Chicken overcooked. Potatoes that tasted like they came from a packet. Green beans out of a can. It was ironic. For the house I helped them afford, it was the cheapest meal they'd ever served. No one spoke for the first few minutes. Forks scraped plates. Glasses clinked. But it wasn't peaceful, it was waiting. So I started. I said I wasn't here for an apology. I didn't come to clear the air or heal anything. I came so we could finally stop pretending. Because I was done living in the ghost version of this family where everything could be glossed over with a meal and a few tight smiles. I told them I knew about Leanne. That she'd reached out. That she'd been kind despite having every reason not to be. I told them it was pathetic. How after everything the first thing Dad did was send her a friend request like he was collecting daughters. I looked right at him. You could have messaged me. You could have explained. But you sent her a friend request before you sent me a single truth. He didn't answer. He just stared at his plate like it might open up and swallow him. Then I laid it out. 15 months of sending money. $1,200 every single month while I worked 50 hours a week, skipped weekends out, delayed fixing my car, passed on vacations. Not once did I ask when they were buying the house. Not once did I ask for $1 back. Because I trusted them. Because they were my parents. And then one day without a call or a heads up I saw it on Facebook. The porch. The sign. The family that built this together. I said, I wasn't mentioned. I wasn't invited. I wasn't even considered. And still I tried. I showed up. I gave space. I gave time. But all I got was silence until you needed money again. Mom opened her mouth to say something but I kept going. You didn't forget me. You erased me. And now that the yard's still a pile of dirt and you've run out of people to help, I'm suddenly important again. I stood up. I wasn't done but I wasn't going to sit through dessert either. I'm not the villain here. I'm just the last person to stop pretending. Then I turned to Kayla. And I'm sorry it took me this long to tell you everything. You didn't ask for this. But I hope now you understand the whole picture. She nodded, slowly like someone realizing their house had been on fire for years but never smelled the smoke. I looked at Mom who was crying but not saying a word. I looked at Dad who still hadn't lifted his eyes. And I said the one thing they never expected to hear. I forgive you. But not in the way you want. I paused. I forgive you in the sense that I'm letting go. I won't hate you. I won't chase closure. But we're done. This was it. This was the end. I walked out. No hugs. No arguments. No one tried to stop me. And for once I didn't feel like I was breaking something. I felt like I was leaving a room that had been empty for a long, long time. Later that night I got one last message from Kayla. They're already blaming you again. Telling people you came to stir things up and walked out to make a statement. I replied with one sentence. Let them. I blocked the group chat after that. The next week I heard they canceled the landscaping entirely. They started telling family I had issues. That I'd gone bitter. That I was jealous of Kayla, jealous of the house and couldn't let go of the past. And I let them talk. Because they needed a story. And I already had the truth.